12 years. That is the exact point in time when a consistent investor contributing $800 a month to a broad market index fund crosses a threshold so mathematically decisive that the financial industry has no commercial reason to ever explain it to you. Not retirement, not financial independence, something more specific and, honestly, more powerful than either of those things. At the 12-year mark, the total compounded future value of the money already sitting in that account permanently exceeds the total compounded future value that a brand new investor starting today, putting in the exact same monthly amount, could ever produce over the same remaining time horizon. That gap does not close. It does not shrink. The advantage is permanently locked in by the calendar. And here is the part nobody puts in the chart. If you have been contributing consistently for a decade or more, that threshold is either already behind you or it is closer than any frustrating quarterly statement has ever suggested. You have probably had a moment in the last year where you opened your investment account, looked at the balance, and felt something hard to name. Not panic, just a quiet grinding doubt. You have skipped things. You have said no when the people around you were saying yes. You have watched colleagues upgrade their cars, book the trips, redo the kitchens, and you kept the automatic contribution going every single month without missing one. And after all of that, the number on the screen looks like something is wrong. Maybe it says $90,000, maybe $140,000, maybe $180,000 after more than a decade of unbroken discipline. The benchmarks the financial media publishes would tell you that you are behind. A widely cited rule of thumb, frequently repeated in publications like Forbes and Money, says the average American should have roughly 3 times their annual salary saved by age 45. With median household income sitting around $71,000 according to the most recent Census Bureau data, that benchmark lands at approximately $213,000. Fidelity's most recent data puts the median 401k balance for Americans in the 40 to 49 age range at just under $80,000. So the benchmark says $213,000. The median reality says $80,000. And the gap between those two numbers is handed to you as evidence that you are failing. It is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that the benchmark was designed by people who have something to sell you. Here is the central question I want to answer in this video. Not how do you invest better, not what fund should you be in. The real question is this: what has the money you already put in actually built, in terms of future compounding power, that a person starting fresh today cannot replicate, no matter how much they contribute? Because that number, the specific dollar value of your time advantage, is almost certainly the most important financial number in your life right now. And it is almost certainly a number you have never seen on a single statement, in a single calculator, or in a single conversation with a financial professional. The industry measures what you have. Nobody measures what your existing base is already doing to the future in a way that no new money can buy back. I am going to show you that number and exactly how to calculate your version of it. But first, I need you to hold one specific image in your mind because I am going to come back to it throughout everything that follows. Think about a flywheel. Not a metaphorical one, a real one. The kind that regulated steam engines in the 1800s. A flywheel is a large, heavy rotating disc. Getting it spinning from a dead stop requires an extraordinary amount of force. You push and push and push. For the first several seconds, it barely moves. The resistance is enormous. If someone watched you from across the room during this phase, they would conclude that your effort is producing almost nothing. And they would be right about what they can see. The wheel is barely turning. But they would be completely wrong about what is happening. Every push is storing energy inside the wheel's mass and rotation. The resistance does not mean the system is broken. The resistance is the system working exactly as designed, accumulating stored power that cannot be released until a specific rotational threshold is crossed. Then, at one specific moment, the physics change. The inertia that was your enemy becomes your engine. The wheel starts pulling. The resistance evaporates. The energy required to maintain it is a small fraction of what it took to start it. And the mechanical output, the work the flywheel can now do, is vastly greater than what you could produce by hand no matter how hard you pushed. Your investment account is a flywheel. The first decade is the startup phase. Enormous input, visible resistance, output that looks almost insultingly small relative to the effort. The account grows. The numbers go up on the statement, but they do not go up in a way that feels proportional to what you have sacrificed to put that money there. This is not a design flaw. This is the geometry of exponential growth before the base is large enough to produce exponential visible output. The flywheel is not broken. It is building the rotational momentum that the second decade will run on. And the most expensive thing you can do right now, the decision that statistically costs more retirement wealth than any single bad investment ever could, is to conclude that the resistance means the system is not working, and try something different. Every year you maintain the contributions and leave the account alone, the flywheel adds mass to its rotation. Every year you switch strategies, pull money out, chase a different approach. You do not just pause the momentum. You actively reduce the stored energy. You hand the flywheel a break. Now I want to give you the second image, because this one explains something specific about why the frustration you feel looking at your balance is practically hardwired into the human experience of investing and has nothing to do with whether your strategy is working. Think about competitive marathon running. There is a strategy that the best distance runners use called negative splitting. It means running the second half of the race faster than the first half. The research on marathon finishing times consistently shows that negative splitting produces better outcomes than starting fast. But here is the part that almost nobody outside professional running ever mentions. In a negative split race, the winning runner does not look like the winner at mile 8. They look conservative. They look like they are holding back. Other runners who started with more dramatic early effort are ahead of them. The crowd cheers for the runners who look the most exhausted, the ones burning the most visible energy in the early miles. The negative split runner looks, from the outside, like they are losing, like they are behind, like maybe they should be running harder. And then at mile 19, mile 22, mile 25, the geometry of the race reverses. The runners who burned hard in the first half are fading. Their pace is dropping. The negative split runner, who conserved the right energy at the right time, starts accelerating. They cross the finish line first, often by a significant margin, while looking the least tired of anyone near the front. The financial media publishes race standings at mile 8. They look at your account balance at year 10 or year 12 and compare it to a finish line target. They hand you a benchmark deficit and let you conclude that your strategy is defective, that you need to run harder, that something about your approach needs to change. They do not show you the split structure of the race. They do not show you that the runner who is winning at mile 8 is almost never the runner who wins at mile 26. They do not tell you that the patient accumulation of the first decade is precisely what makes the second decade possible. The discipline of negative splitting is the strategy. The uncomfortable feeling of being mid-pack at mile 8 is not a signal to sprint. It is confirmation that the strategy is working. There is a number from Dalbar, a financial research firm that has been tracking actual investor behavior against market returns every year since 1994. That I want you to hold in your mind before we get to the tables. Over the 20-year period ending in 2023, the S&P 500 returned approximately 10.2% annually. The average equity fund investor, investing in those same funds, captured approximately 6.8% annually. That 3.4 percentage point gap is not fees. It is not inflation. It is not bad luck. It is specifically the decision to change strategies at the wrong moment. It is the mile 8 sprint. It is the investor who looked at a balance that felt too small and concluded the problem was the strategy rather than the measuring stick. 3.4 percentage points over 20 years on a $200,000 portfolio is the difference between roughly $1,100,000 and approximately $2,100,000. $1 million. Gone. Not to a collapsing company. Not to fraud. Not to a bad stock pick. Gone because the investor looked at the right result through the wrong framework and made a rational, understandable, financially catastrophic decision. By the end of this video, I want you to have a framework that makes that decision unnecessary. Not because I'm going to tell you to stay the course, which is what every financial content creator says right before they stop helping you. I want to show you a specific, calculable number that makes the right decision obvious rather than painful. I want you to understand not just that staying invested matters, but exactly how much the time you have already put in is worth in future dollars that no new investor can buy back at any price. When you see your own version of that number, the frustration does not just go away. It converts into something more useful, and the decisions that felt hard start feeling like the obviously correct ones. The number I want to show you first is not your balance. It is the number that your balance has already made inevitable. Here is the table nobody shows you. Every number below uses 8% annual return, monthly compounding, the same conservative figure that reflects the S&P 500's inflation-adjusted historical average over the past century, as documented in Robert Shiller's dataset at Yale. The only variable that changes across each row is how many years the investor has already been contributing. Everything else, the monthly contribution, the return rate, the time horizon to age 65, is held constant. The investor in each scenario contributes $800 per month, and we are measuring what happens to the final balance at 65, depending on how many of those years are already behind them versus ahead of them. Investor starting at age 50 with zero saved. Balance at 65, approximately $278,000. Investor starting at age 40 with zero saved. Balance at 65, approximately $573,000. Investor starting at age 35 with zero saved. Balance at 65, approximately $914,000. Now, a different comparison. Same three investors. Same age 65 target. Same 8% return. But now the first investor has already been contributing for 15 years and has a current balance of approximately $210,000. They stopped contributing entirely today. They put in nothing new. They simply let the existing balance compound untouched for the remaining years. Investor who accumulated $210,000 by age 35 and then stopped contributing. Balance at 65, approximately $2,100,000. Investor starting fresh at 35 with nothing and contributing $800 a month from today forward. Balance at 65, approximately $914,000. Same starting age, same end date. One investor contributed for 15 years and then stopped. The other contributed every month without interruption for 30 years. The investor who stopped has $2,100,000. The investor who never stopped has $914,000. The investor who did less total work, who put in fewer total dollars over fewer total years, ends up with more than twice the final balance. The difference is not the monthly amount. The difference is not the return rate. The difference is when the money went in. Let that sit for a moment because that table breaks the way most people think about investing. The conventional framing is that more discipline, more contributions, more years of saving always produces more wealth. And that is broadly true if you start at the same time. But it is not true when you compare investors who started at different points on the compounding curve. The investor who started earlier, even if they eventually stopped, has a structural advantage that cannot be purchased back by any amount of late contributions. The early dollars are not just dollars. They are the longest duration compounding units in the entire portfolio. Each dollar contributed in year 1 compounds for 30 years. Each dollar contributed in year 29 compounds for 1 year. The ratio of their terminal value at 8% is approximately 10.06 to 1.08. An early dollar is worth 9.3 times as much as a late dollar in raw compounding output, not slightly more. 9.3 times more. This is the number that most financial calculators are specifically designed to make invisible. Calculators show you projected ending balances. They do not show you the per-dollar productivity of the contributions already made versus the contributions still ahead. They do not tell you that the money you put in during the frustrating early years when the balance looked too small to matter was simultaneously the most financially productive money you will ever invest in your entire life. They show you a current balance that looks small. They do not show you what that balance is already worth in terminal compounding value in a currency that no new investor can buy back at any price. That invisible number, the present terminal value of your existing base, is the number I want you to calculate for yourself by the end of this video. Now I want to destroy the most expensive wrong diagnosis in personal finance, because this is where the money actually disappears. Not in bad markets, not in high fees, though fees matter, not even in panic selling, though that matters too. It disappears in the diagnosis. And the diagnosis almost always sounds like this: my balance is not large enough. I must not be doing this correctly. I need a better strategy. I need a higher return. I need to be in something different. You hear it from people who have been investing for 10 years and feel behind the benchmark. You see it in every forum where someone posts their balance and asks if they are on track. The diagnosis is almost universal and almost always wrong. And I want to show you why with a specific number. You think the problem is your current balance. The actual problem is how you are measuring it. Here is what I mean. A 49-year-old investor with $187,000 saved, who started contributing at 35, feels behind because the benchmark says they should have roughly $282,000 at 3 times a $94,000 salary. The gap is $95,000. That looks like the problem. That $95,000 gap is not the problem. That $95,000 gap is the wrong unit of measurement for where this person actually stands. Here is the right unit. That $187,000 balance, sitting in an index fund earning 8% annually with 16 years remaining until age 65, will grow to approximately $627,000 through compounding alone with 0 additional contributions. A brand new investor starting today with no balance would need to contribute approximately $2,040 per month for 16 years at the same 8% return to produce that same $627,000 at 65. $2,040 per month. That is the real value of the time already invested, not the current balance. The contributions per month that a new investor would need to pay to buy what the calendar already gave you for free. That number is your actual competitive position, and it is almost certainly more than double what you are currently contributing. The financial media never shows you this comparison because it does not produce anxiety. An investor who understands their time advantage does not need a new strategy. They do not need an upgraded plan or a different fund or a premium advisory relationship. They need to keep going, which is not a sentence that generates revenue for anyone. The industry profits from your uncertainty. It profits from the benchmark gap that makes you feel behind. It profits from the diagnosis that tells you something needs to change. The correct diagnosis, which is that you are measuring a calendar advantage with a balance ruler, destroys the entire commercial logic of the anxiety it is selling you. That is why you have never seen this framing before. It does not sell anything. I want to introduce you to someone who is standing in exactly the place this video is talking about. His name is David. He is 49 years old. He works as a regional operations director for a mid-sized logistics company in the Midwest and earns $94,000 per year. He started contributing to his company 401k at 35 when he got serious about his finances after reading a book a colleague recommended. He has contributed every single month since then without exception. He increased his contribution percentage twice when he got raises. He has never touched the balance, never taken a loan against it, never panic sold during any of the 3 significant market corrections that happened across his 14-year investing window. He is doing everything right by every measure that actually matters. His current balance is $187,000. The benchmark says he should have approximately $282,000. He is $95,000 short of where the benchmarks say he should be. He knows this because he reads the articles. He runs the calculators. He looks at his projected balance at 65, roughly $540,000 at his current contribution rate, and he thinks that number is not enough to retire on comfortably. He is right that $540,000 may not be enough. He is completely wrong about what that means and what he should do about it. And the decision he is currently considering, the one that is starting to feel rational and necessary given the gap and the projection, is exactly the decision that will cost him the most money he will ever lose. We will come back to David and show you the specific numbers that change everything about how he is reading his own situation. But first, I need to show you why the instinct he is acting on, the same instinct that the Dalbar research says costs the average investor 3.4 percentage points per year, feels more rational at the exact moment it is most destructive. There is a pattern in behavioral economics called myopic loss aversion, described by Richard Thaler and Amos Tversky, that explains why experienced, disciplined investors make their worst decisions at the most critical moments. Humans evaluate financial outcomes in short windows, typically 1 to 3 years, and weight losses in that window roughly 2 to 1 over equivalent gains. An investor who has been contributing for 12 years still evaluates their position relative to recent slow-feeling quarters. The brain reads that feeling as evidence the strategy is broken. It is not reading the math, it is reading the feeling. And the feeling in startup phase compounding almost always says not enough. Not because the strategy is failing, but because the flywheel hasn't crossed the threshold yet. David is in the third year of feeling exactly that. 14 years of perfect behavior, and the recent window has started whispering that something needs to change. His current options, as he understands them, are a rental property, individual tech stocks that have run recently, or a different fund with a higher historical return he found on a comparison site. Every one of those options has a specific calculable cost that does not appear anywhere in the table he is looking at. We will come back to him with those numbers. Let me close David's story first, because the numbers here are specific enough to matter. David at 49 has $187,000 saved. 16 years until 65. 8% annual return. Here are 3 scenarios, and only one variable changes across them. Scenario 1. David keeps doing exactly what he has been doing. $800 a month, same index fund, no changes. At 65, his balance is approximately $543,000. He is correct that this may not be enough to retire on comfortably on its own, though combined with Social Security it becomes a more workable picture. But let's take his concerns seriously. Scenario 2. David, frustrated with the trajectory, moves $30,000 of his balance into a rental property as a down payment and redirects his monthly $800 toward property management and mortgage coverage instead of the 401k. He earns roughly equivalent real estate returns of 8% on the property. What he loses is the compounding base. The $30,000 removed from the market at 49, with 16 years of compounding ahead, was worth approximately $102,000 in terminal value. Gone from one reallocation decision, his index fund balance is now $157,000. At 65, the fund portion of his portfolio is approximately $436,000. He needs to add the property equity, which is highly illiquid, deeply management intensive, and subject to local market risk. He has also added complexity, taxation events, maintenance liability, and decision overhead to a system that was running frictionlessly. His terminal number is not dramatically different, and his risk profile is significantly higher. Scenario 3. David does one specific thing differently. He does not change the strategy. He keeps the index fund. He does one thing. He increases his monthly contribution from $800 to $1,050 because his company announced a raise last quarter that he absorbed into lifestyle before he read this. $250 extra per month. Less than the average American car payment, according to Experian's most recent data. At 65, his balance is approximately $716,000. That is $173,000 more than Scenario 1. Not from a different fund, not from a smarter strategy. From redirecting part of an income increase before the lifestyle ratchet clicked forward and quietly claimed it. His flywheel does not change. His flywheel just gets slightly more fuel at exactly the moment in its rotational cycle when each additional unit of input produces the most stored energy. David chose Scenario 3. Not because it was complicated. Because when someone showed him the terminal value of the raise he was already receiving, the decision made itself. He did not need discipline. He needed the right number in front of him at the right moment. We will come back to that mechanism in the 3 actions. But first, here's the part of this video I have been building toward since the first sentence. The years that matter most in a 30-year compounding journey are not the years at the end, even though those years produce the largest absolute dollar increases on the statement. The years that matter most are the years you are currently in. $1 invested today in your account at 8% annually compounds for 16 years and becomes approximately $3.43. That same dollar invested 8 years from now, when you finally feel like the balance looks more impressive and the strategy feels more validated, compounds for 8 years and becomes approximately $1.85. You do not lose $1 by waiting 8 years to invest it. You lose $1.58 per dollar on every dollar you delay. That loss does not register on any statement. It is not subtracted from your balance. It never appears as a line item. It is simply the compounding that did not happen, the rotation that the flywheel did not complete, the miles that the negative split runner never ran, invisible, permanent, irreversible. If you are somewhere between year 8 and year 15 of consistent investing and you are feeling the frustration that David was feeling, the most important thing I can tell you is this: you are not at the beginning of the race. You are at the exact moment where every day of continued patience is worth more than any strategy change, return optimization, or financial product upgrade the industry could ever offer you. The flywheel is approaching the threshold. The negative split runner is approaching mile 18. The worst possible moment to make a decision that slows the wheel is the moment right before it crosses into self-sustaining momentum. And the measuring stick that is making you feel like you need to do something is specifically designed to hide the fact that you are approximately where you need to be to let the math finish the job. Here are 3 specific things to do with this. Not general principles. Specific actions with specific inputs and specific outputs. The first action is to calculate your time advantage equivalency number today. This takes 15 minutes and 1 free compound interest calculator. Find your current investment account balance. Go to any standard compound interest calculator online, plug in your current balance as the starting amount, use 8% as the annual return, and enter the number of years remaining until your target retirement age. Do not add any monthly contributions, just the existing balance. Calculate the projected value. Write that number down. Now open a second calculation. Start from 0. Enter 0 as the starting balance. Enter the same 8% return. Enter the same number of years. Now ask the calculator what monthly contribution would produce the same projected ending value. That monthly contribution number is your time advantage equivalency number. It is the exact dollar amount per month that a brand new investor starting today would need to contribute every single month without interruption at the same return rate, just to arrive where your existing balance will take you automatically without a single new dollar from you. For most investors in their mid-40s with a decade or more of contributions behind them, that number is between 1.5 and 2.5 times their current monthly contribution. It is the price of the calendar that you already paid. Write it down and look at it the next time you feel behind. The second action is to redirect the next income event before it has a destination. Right now, before the money exists in your hand, answer this question in writing. When is the next raise, bonus, tax refund, or loan payoff realistically arriving? Write the approximate date and the approximate monthly dollar amount. Now write the exact percentage that goes directly into your investment account the day it arrives. Not eventually. That specific day. Research by Shlomo Benartzi on automatic enrollment at UCLA's Anderson School consistently shows that the decision made in the abstract, before the money exists, executes correctly. The decision made while holding actual new cash, in proximity to a car dealership or a home renovation quote, executes correctly far less often. The lifestyle ratchet does not ask permission. It clicks forward automatically the moment unallocated income lands. The only architecture that reliably beats it is a decision made before the income arrives and automated before it lands. Make the decision now. The third action is to build an interference log. The most expensive behavior in the Dalbar data is not one dramatic decision. It is a series of small, rational feeling pivots that collectively produce a 3.4 percentage point annual drag. Each individual pivot, moving to cash for a quarter, rotating into a sector fund, pausing contributions towards something with a better recent chart, looks justified in isolation. Collectively, they are the sprint at mile 8 that breaks the negative split. Starting today, every time you feel the urge to change your allocation, sell, or redirect contributions, write it down. The date, the reason, the S&P 500 level that day. Do not act for 72 hours. The urge to change always feels most rational at moments of peak fear or peak frustration. Those are exactly the moments the research shows change destroys the most value. The log creates a gap between the emotion and the action. In that gap, the flywheel keeps turning. David printed his time advantage equivalency number. It was $1,640 per month. He contributes $800. His existing base is already doing the compounding work of an investor, contributing more than double his monthly amount. He had never seen that number before. His HR portal did not show it. His statements did not calculate it. The benchmarks he compared against did not include it. He had been measuring a calendar advantage with a balance ruler, concluding he was behind a race he was actually well into winning. He increased his contribution by $250 the week his raise arrived, which he had pre-decided in writing the month before. He started the interference log. His projected balance at 65 moved from $543,000 to $716,000. He did not find a new strategy. He found the correct measuring stick. The flywheel does not announce when it crosses the threshold. There is no statement that says, "Congratulations, the momentum is now self-sustaining." You keep pushing at the same rate, contributing the same way, and somewhere in the middle of what feels like another ordinary quarter, the resistance is different. The returns line on the statement starts to rival the contributions line. The math has quietly taken over. And the investors who reach that moment, almost without exception, are not the ones who found a better strategy during the difficult years. They are the ones who correctly identified which phase they were in, kept the wheel turning through the startup phase, and did not mistake the resistance for evidence that the system was broken. Subscribe if this kind of analysis is useful to you. It helps the channel reach people who need to hear it, and this is exactly the type of content I cover every week. The wheel is already spinning. Your only job now is to not be the one who grabs the brake.